Hello, welcome. It is World Mission Update. How are you? My name is Rusty Humphries. He's Greg Kelley, and he is the CEO, the main man, the leader of the organization called World Mission. And Greg, it's great seeing you, my friend. How are you?
Good to see you, Rusty. We're doing great here in Michigan, my friend. Just experiencing the lovely sub 70 degree temperatures of our summer. I know it's a little different for you, but hey, that's okay.
You know what? You're sub 70. I'm sub 120.
Right. Well, you got that going for you.
Which is nice. That. Yeah. I 118. And my record is I went outside at 10 o'clock at night and rode my bike at 116 degrees.
Is it true? We all want to know, can you take an egg and crack it on the sidewalk and have it cook for you properly?
I don't know properly, but yes, I did a couple years ago. I took a frying pan and I put bacon, cookies, and an egg on a frying pan and put it on my dashboard of my car. And I wouldn't eat it. It didn't look great, but it was definitely cooked when I was done.
Oh, man, that's impressive. That's warm. Toasty.
Well, and places you go around the world are very toasty, too. Like,
no doubt about that.
Yeah, are you hearing any stories around the world about heat problems in places that you're keeping an eye out? 1040 window, for example?
Yeah, I mean, the place that is every year, it's probably like Phoenix, just super torchy hot, is northern India. It's always like running right now above 100 degrees every single day in Delhi. And then, on top of that, the thing that makes it really brutal is the smog. I mean, you can't see very far and it's just in your face. And so you got those terrible temperatures and also smog on top of that. That's a terrible combination.
Like how bad is the smog in a place like that?
Well, I don't know what the visibility is, maybe like a mile or something like that. So you can't see. In fact, with COVID, when COVID happened in northern India, it was the first time in most people's lifetime that they'd ever been able to see the Himalaya mountains, because with everything shut down, the smog kind of lifted and people were looking to the north, which is where the Himalayas are at. And they're seeing these, white capped mountains. Of course, they're, maybe 50 miles away. And they're like, what is that? Well, the smog had lifted because everybody's at home from COVID and they're seeing the Himalayas for the first time. So it's significant. It's very significant throughout India. And it just makes life all the more challenging.
Wow, that's unbelievable. Well, let's talk a little bit about what's on your mind today and something that you want to get out there today. What's going on with you? Oh, before I do, will you please hit the subscribe button, please? Subscribe to this show. Share it. Let people know, because, the stuff that Greg and his team at World Mission are doing are very, very important and interesting at the same time. So make sure you subscribe. So what is it we're talking about today, Greg?
Well, we are talking about orality, and to describe orality, taking a step back.
Is that like going back in the 60s, like or 70s, Wessonality? Florence Henderson used to do Wessonality. Okay, not the same.
It's a little different.
Okay,
just a little bit.
What is it?
And from the mission standpoint, so illiteracy is the first word you talk about. That's really what 22 years ago, what just got me really excited about the focus that World Mission has today, which is we tell people, what do? We reach oral learners and unreached people groups. So just unpacking that word oral, it essentially means somebody who prefers to learn in a non-literate way. And the reason that's significant, Rusty, is Jesus, of course, called us to make disciples of all nations. And really for the better part of the last, you can even go back 100 years. The rhythm was we'd identify a language that didn't have the Bible, which is reasonable. Okay. We would translate that language, which is awesome. Getting the Bible in new languages, wonderful. We would print that Bible and we would distribute that Bible, and then we'd move on to the next language and start the whole sequence again. Well, the challenge with that, and what we've realized over these last really 20 years more so than any, is that 2/3 of the world's population are oral learners. And so as well-intended as that printed Bible is, it's not going into the heart of the people because they prefer to learn in a non-literate way. And so it's been a real eye-opener for the church. And so that's why this word has emerged, orality. And the reason it's significant more so than illiteracy is illiteracy only scoops up about 1 billion people. So the UN census says there's 1 billion, which is a massive number in and of itself out of 7 billion people in the world, 1 billion adults in the world that are totally illiterate. So that's in and of itself a huge problem. But as I said, if you want to scoop up the whole issue, you have to look at who are oral learners, and that takes it to 2/3 of the world's population. That is why we distribute the solar-powered audio Bible and not printed Bibles at World Mission.
I mean, that certainly makes sense. Is the literacy an issue at all, or is it just, hey, you know what, that's the way they prefer it, so we're just going to encourage and help them hear the word?
I mean, for us, it goes back to that adage, Rusty, of do you want to teach someone to fish or give them a fish? And of course, we believe very firmly in you want to empower people, which means you're teaching them to fish, or i.e. in this context, teach them how to read, right? But think about some of these areas, northern India, the 1040 window where we work. It's the highest levels of poverty. It's the least opportunity people have to climb the corporate ladder, right? There's no opportunity. There's no motivation. And in many instances, there's just not the opportunity to learn how to read. And so sort of making that as our fundamental mountain that we're going to stand on and say, we're going to teach people how to read. As well-intended, as good as that sounds, it's really not practical for so much of the world that have never heard the gospel. There's no motivation or drive to learn how to read. I'm not saying it's not good and that we shouldn't continue to try that, but to make that our only approach, we are missing people by the thousands who are passing into eternity without ever hearing the gospel message when we just say, we're going to teach them how to read. So we say, hey, let's not fight it. Let's get them the word of God in a way that they'll embrace and it will go into their hearts. And let's make that our priority. That's, again, why we distribute the treasure, the solar-powered audio Bible.
Do you run into any pushback with other Christian groups that say you should be teaching them to read?
Yeah, absolutely. We have offered, I mean, for us, just getting the treasure out is key. And, we have our network of 30 national leaders in the 1040 window that we're pushing most of them to. But if we come across an organization that is well positioned among an unreached people group that maybe we aren't with our nationals, and we're like, hey, the treasure would be amazing in, Somalia, in Algeria, Tunisia, wherever that happens to be. And I can remember one specific instance of an organization working in Southeast Asia, very well positioned. And I literally met with their leader and said, man, we want to give you 100 treasures. You pick the language. I'll send them to you in the U.S. and you guys just, take them out. I promise you, they'll be a blessing to your leaders in the field. And he looked at me and he's like, well, it's an audio Bible. It's really not what we do. We teach people how to read. So, I'm going to pass on that. And I was just like kind of flabbergasted that we're trying to give them away for free. But because they were so adamant about their focus, which you got to give people credit. That's their focus. But I'm telling you, Rusty, it's not practical. If we're called to make disciples of all nations, there's 65,000 people dying every day who have never had access to the gospel message. I'm sorry, but for me as a leader to pull back and go, yeah, I'm going to teach them how to read before that, I think is irresponsible. Right. And so I think here's the thing in missions. A lot of cases, there's room for both. And that would be our position. There's room to teach people to read. But guess what? If this 70-year-old woman doesn't have any motivation and doesn't want to learn how to read, I'm not going to force her to learn how to read. I'm going to put treasure in her hands.
Well, and speaking of that, here's a treasure in a hand right now. It looks like an older woman. So this is what we're talking about.
This is what we're talking about. Yeah, this person is hanging on to the Word of God. And I believe she's in a marketplace, right? Isn't she kind of leaning over some? She's got some items and things like that.
I'm just looking at she's just this one person holding a treasure.
It's the Word of God, Rusty. Mm-hmm. It doesn't get any more pure than that in her heart language, and we can put the treasure in over 5,000 languages. And so when she's there listening to the Word of God, the thing is, she's not going to keep that to herself. The beautiful thing about oral cultures, Rusty, is they do things in community. They do it so much better than we do. I mean, if you were to compare cultures, you'd say, you and I live in kind of a little more of an individualistic society. I mean, I do my thing. I work at my workstation. I get in my car. I open up my garage door. I get in. I shut the garage behind me. I have dinner maybe with my wife and my kids, just us. And you go to an oral culture, They're doing everything in community together. They eat their meals together. They're living together. And so when you put the Word of God in that setting, one treasure is impacting multitudes of people.
Mm-hmm. Let's take a look at some of these. Here's that woman that you're talking about in the marketplace now, leaning over, taking a look at, or listening to the treasure.
Yeah, so people are going to come to her, Rusty. They're gonna shop there. That's where they're gonna get some of their vegetables and fruit and vegetables for the day, some other things, and lo and behold, that treasure is playing, and she's enjoying it. But guess what? Every shopper that comes there to that little marketplace, they're also going to benefit. They're listening. These are set up all around the world by the hundreds and hundreds people, and that one actually happens to be our messenger. Which is In Touch, our partnership, where they're distributing through our networks multiple languages on one device. So that one device has multiple languages on it, and they're listening for, in most cases, it's hours at a time. We'll ask them the question, how long do you listen to the treasure? And they'll kind of look at us kind of like it's a silly question, and their answer is, well, until it stops. So let's run all day, and then as it needs to be charged, they just flip it over and allow the sun to charge it up, and they're good to go again.
Well, here's a group of people. I don't know if they're trying to fight over it or somebody's just holding that treasure up high above everyone's head.
One of the things that I'm so proud of at World Mission is how we do our ministry. Our expression of it is through national leaders, almost exclusively. And so these national leaders, they've come together. They're really that's a photo of celebration and unity. And so what I mean by that is they're celebrating the fact that the Word of God is coming in this community, and they're saying we together are distributing this and investing it as one. And so one treasure, again, is going to impact an entire village in that case. And it's a prayerful dedication to the Lord. That was a very spontaneous photo that took place as their kind of joyful expression of here's what a treasure is going to do in a village.
Mm-hmm. Here we're in Africa now, and I think the partner there is somebody that we traveled with in Africa as well. Is that right?
Yeah, that looks like Benson. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah,
that people group there, Rusty, is the Turkana, who you would be familiar with. So that's a very typical scene of a distribution. So one of our national leaders engaging a community. They've had some fellowship. He's kind of shared, why he's there. And then he's got a box of treasures or a backpack full of treasures, and he starts giving them out to key people. So we have to kind of go about that a bit sensitively and understanding who are the influencers in this village. And those are the ones that will be blessed with the treasure. And then they're charged to set up listening groups. And that's where the multiplication effect of one unit kicks in.
Well, and you're talking about boxes in the back. Here's a picture of was it 1,000 treasures to going to Turkana?
Yeah, those are fun days for us. That's in our office here in Grand Rapids, and we're getting ready to ship out those. So in fact, today they're doing some shipping of some units too. That's why we're here, Rusty. That World Mission exists to get the gospel out where it's never been. And so when we have days where we're shipping out 1,000 treasures, you can take a multiple of over 100. So, over 100,000 people are going to be listening to the Word of God because of that shipment that is going into northern Kenya. So we like to kind of celebrate and mark those moments.
Yeah, that's awesome. We got a little group here outside of a hut. Looks like one of the partners and a family with some children. Just trying to figure out what's going on, right?
No, it's exactly. That is such a precious spot. Another distribution going on, and that happens to be among the last remaining unreached people group in the country of Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, which has almost been in perpetual war for the last 30 years. And these Pygmies are such a persecuted group. They're really abused, and some are in slavery. They're very hidden. They've not adapted to the culture because they're so persecuted. And so getting to them, Rusty, is one of the massive challenges. And once you get there, they speak a language called Lingala, but they're almost exclusively illiterate or oral learners. And so this is one of our national leaders putting a treasure in this particular village.
And then our last photo on this show is a woman with a child behind her, and they're listening to the treasure. And this doesn't look like Africa. Where's this?
Yeah, we're in Cambodia here. And again, this is the representation of a family. So I love this photo because it showed that young girl's curiosity. She's looking over her mother's shoulder there, and guess what? She's going to be absorbing the Word of God. And so many times when the treasures go out, we see the hands of an individual who's receiving it, but that one individual represents a family, represents an extended family, and in, yes, many cases, an entire village who are listening to the Word of God for the first time in their lives. So I love those pictures that we're blessed with that get sent to us because it shows the Word of God going into an open heart. And we know, God will change people's lives as they submit themselves to the Word.
Absolutely. Well, a great representation of just some of what World Mission does and how the work is so important. And, before you hit that subscribe button, and we ask you that you do that and that you share it, go to worldmission.cc. It's not .com, it's .cc, worldmission.cc, and see what Greg and his team are doing and why you should be donating some of your time and resources to this wonderful group. Greg?
Yeah. In Isaiah, Rusty, 55, it says, the Word of God will not return void. There's no better place for us to invest our lives, our prayers, our resources into things that get the Word of God out there, because it's a supernatural encounter that you have, that I have with the Word of God. And in so many places around the world, they don't have access to it. So as you connect with us, whether you're subscribing, sharing the podcast, praying for us, or maybe you want to send $40 that helps us send one treasure. I assure you that whatever way expression of investment you have in us, the Word of God is going out to places it's never been.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we sure appreciate you. More shows coming. You don't want to miss any of them, so make sure you subscribe and then hit the little bell if you're on YouTube so you get notified every time a new World Mission Update podcast comes out. If you're listening on iTunes or Google Podcasts or wherever, just make sure you subscribe. Let it come right to your phone. We sure appreciate you. Until next time, my name is Rusty Humphries. For Greg Kelley, this is the World Mission Update.